Look around you. Right now, in this very moment, look around this room. Look at the person to your left. Look at the person to your right. Now I want you to understand something. Statistically, most of the people in this room will go back home today, lay down on that same couch, scroll through that same phone, watch that same show, and wake up tomorrow doing the exact same thing they did yesterday, and the day before that, and the month before that. And if we're being completely real with each other right now, most of them will do that for the rest of their lives. But not you. Not the chosen ones. Not the ones who felt something in their chest the moment they heard that word. Chosen. Because if that word stirred something inside you, if it made you sit up a little straighter, if it made something in your soul say, yes, that's me, then I need you to listen to every single word I am about to say. Because I am here to tell you that you are running out of time, and you cannot afford to miss another day. Let me start with something that might shake you a little. There was a study done at Harvard University, and I know we love to quote Harvard, but stay with me because this one matters. Researchers followed people over the course of decades, and they found something extraordinary. They found that the gap between people who succeed and people who don't isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. It isn't even opportunity. The gap, the single most defining gap, is the relationship a person has with time. The successful people didn't have more time. They didn't get 30 hours in their day. They had the same 24 hours that every single person in this room has, but they treated time like it was the most sacred, non-renewable resource on the planet. Because it is. You can lose money and make it back. You can lose a job and find a new one. You can lose a relationship and build a better one. But you cannot, I repeat, you cannot get back a single second of lost time, not 1 second. And yet we throw it away like it's trash. I think about a man named Eric Thomas. Many of you know him, the hip-hop preacher. Before he was selling out arenas and coaching NFL teams and inspiring millions of people around the world, Eric Thomas was homeless. He was sleeping under bridges in Detroit. He was eating out of garbage cans. He had dropped out of high school. His mother had thrown him out. He had nothing, and in the middle of that nothing, cold, hungry, humiliated, he met a preacher who said something to him that changed his entire life. The preacher said, "Young man, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful." Eric Thomas heard those words, and something inside him woke up. But here's the part people always miss when they tell that story. It wasn't just the words. It was the timing. Eric Thomas was 24 years old when he started turning his life around. 24. By conventional standards, he was already behind. Already late. He didn't finish his bachelor's degree until he was almost 30. His PhD didn't come until he was in his 40s. People told him he was too old. People told him he had missed his window. But Eric Thomas understood something that most people will never understand. He understood that the worst time to start is yesterday, the second worst time to start is 10 years from now, and the best time, the absolute best time, is right now, this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. Because here is what nobody tells you about being chosen. Being chosen doesn't mean the path is easy. Being chosen doesn't mean the doors just open and the money just flows and the success just lands in your lap. Being chosen means you have been given the capacity, the inner architecture, to do something extraordinary. But capacity is not destiny. Capacity is potential, and potential without urgency is just a beautiful, untouched gift sitting in a box collecting dust. I have met some of the most talented people in the world who are completely and utterly broke. Not just financially, but spiritually broke. Empty. Unfulfilled. Because they had every gift in the world, and they treated those gifts like they had unlimited time to use them. And time called their bluff. I want to tell you about a woman named Sylvia Plath. Now some of you know her as one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. Others of you know her tragic story, but what most people don't know, what most people never stop to consider, is that Sylvia Plath wrote her most important work, The Bell Jar, in a matter of weeks. She was racing against something. She was fighting depression, fighting the feeling that time was slipping through her fingers, fighting the sense that the world was moving on without her, and in that urgency, in that desperate, almost frantic relationship with time, she produced something immortal. Now, I'm not telling you to manufacture a crisis. I'm not telling you to live in anxiety. What I am telling you is this: every chosen one throughout history has had one thing in common. They understood at some deep, cellular level that time is not waiting for them, and that understanding didn't paralyze them. It propelled them. Let's talk about Kobe Bryant for a moment, because if you want to understand urgency, if you want to understand what it looks like to treat time as sacred, you have to study Kobe Bryant. This man was waking up at 4 a.m. while everyone else was sleeping, not because someone told him to, not because his contract required it, because Kobe understood something profound. He understood that in the time that his competitors were sleeping, he could get better. He could add one more move to his arsenal. He could refine one more skill. He could become 1% better every single day. And he understood that 1%, compounded over days, over months, over years, becomes an insurmountable advantage. Kobe didn't waste time because Kobe understood that every second he wasted was a second his competition was using. He famously said, "I can't relate to lazy people. We don't speak the same language." And some people heard that and thought he was arrogant. But Kobe wasn't being arrogant. Kobe was being honest. He had decided that his time was too valuable to spend on laziness, on distraction, on anything that wasn't moving him toward greatness. And then one January morning in 2020, Kobe Bryant got on a helicopter and never came home. He was 41 years old, 5 NBA championships, 2 Olympic gold medals, an Oscar, a legacy that will outlive all of us in this room. But 41 years old. 41. And I ask you, if Kobe Bryant had wasted even half of those years, what would the world have lost? What would he have lost? And then I ask you, what is the world losing right now because you are wasting your years? I need you to sit with that question. Don't rush past it. What is the world losing because you are sitting on your gift? What problem will go unsolved because you never stepped into your purpose? What child will never be inspired because you never wrote that book? What community will never be healed because you never started that organization? What lives will never be changed because you let fear and comfort and procrastination steal the years that belong to your destiny? Because, see, people think that procrastination is a personal problem. They think it only affects them. But when you are a chosen one, when you carry a purpose bigger than yourself, your procrastination has a cost that extends far beyond your own life. Your delay is someone else's darkness. Your hesitation is someone else's unanswered prayer. And that's not guilt. That's weight. That's the sacred, holy weight of purpose. And I want you to feel that weight today, because sometimes weight is what gets us moving. Let me tell you about a young man named Steve Jobs. In 1985, Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he founded. He was 30 years old. He was publicly humiliated. He was devastated. He went home and he cried. This is a man who would later stand on stages and inspire billions, and he went home and cried. Because rejection hurts. Failure hurts. And for a while, he thought he was finished. But here's what happened in the years that followed. Steve Jobs started 2 new companies, NXT and Pixar. And while neither of them was the runaway success people expected, they taught him things that Apple never could have. They refined him. They sharpened him. And then in 1997, 12 years after being fired, Steve Jobs returned to Apple. And what he did in the next 14 years, the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, fundamentally changed the way every single person on this planet communicates, creates, and lives. Now here's the part I want you to hold on to. In 2005, Steve Jobs gave a commencement address at Stanford University, and he talked about his cancer diagnosis. He talked about sitting in a doctor's office and being told that he had maybe 6 weeks to live. And he said this: "I want you to hear this because it is one of the most important things any human being has ever said publicly." He said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important." Steve Jobs survived. His cancer was treated. He lived another 6 years after that speech. But he never forgot what that doctor's waiting room felt like. He never forgot the weight of mortality. And it made every minute sacred. You don't have to get a cancer diagnosis to develop urgency. You don't have to lose everything to understand the value of time. But you do have to make a decision. You have to decide, right now, in this room, in this moment, that you will no longer treat time as an unlimited resource. You will no longer act as though tomorrow is guaranteed. You will no longer live as though your best years are ahead of you, without doing anything to ensure that they actually are. Because I hear people say all the time, "My time is coming. I'm just waiting for the right moment." Everything happens in its season. And listen, there's wisdom in patience. I believe in divine timing. I believe that not everything is meant to happen at the speed we want it to happen. But there is a difference, a massive, life-defining difference, between trusting the process while working relentlessly and using spiritual language to justify spiritual laziness. "My season is coming" means nothing if you're not planting seeds right now. You cannot harvest what you have not sown. And seasons don't wait for you to be ready. Spring does not delay because you were too comfortable in winter. The clock moves. The calendar turns. The years accumulate. And one day you will be standing somewhere looking back, and you will have to answer a question that may be the most important question a human being ever has to face. Not, did I succeed? Not, was I rich? Not, was I famous? But this, did I actually try? Did I actually give it everything I had? Did I actually show up for the life I was chosen to live? I want to talk about the concept of the chosen one because I think it gets misunderstood. People hear chosen one, and they think it means special treatment. They think it means exemption from struggle. They think it means some cosmic force has decided to deliver success to their doorstep. But that is not what being chosen means. Being chosen means being called. And a call requires a response. In the Bible, and I'm going to touch on scripture here because some of you need to hear this. There's a parable about a man who gave talents to his servants. One servant received 5 talents and went out and doubled them. Another received 2 and doubled them as well. But the third servant, the one who received 1 talent, went and buried it in the ground. He played it safe. He protected what he had. He avoided risk, and when the master returned, he was furious with that third servant. Not because he lost the talent, but because he never used it. He never tried. He chose comfort over calling, and the master said, "And I want you to hear this. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. Because in the kingdom of purpose, the one who uses what they've been given gets more. And the one who buries what they've been given eventually loses even that." This is not just theology. This is a law of the universe. Use your gifts or lose them. Show up for your calling or watch it fade. Step into your purpose or watch it slowly, painfully atrophy. Some of you in this room are burying your talent right now. You have a gift that the world desperately needs, and you are sitting on it because you are afraid. Afraid of failure. Afraid of judgment, afraid of what people will say, afraid that maybe you're not actually as gifted as you think you are. And I want to speak directly to that fear because fear is the single greatest thief of human potential that has ever existed. Fear has stolen more futures than poverty ever could. Fear has killed more dreams than failure ever has, because when you fail, you learn. When you fall, you can get up, but when fear keeps you from even trying, when fear convinces you to stay in the safe, comfortable, familiar prison of your current life, then you lose before the game even begins. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison on Robben Island. 27 years. He could have come out of that prison broken, bitter, and defeated. He could have come out and given up. Most people would have. But instead, Mandela came out of prison and became the president of South Africa. He became the father of a nation. He became one of the most iconic figures in human history. And here's what he said. He said, "I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." 27 years of his life gone, and Mandela still found urgency. Mandela still found purpose. Mandela still found the fire. If a man can spend 27 years in a cell on an island and come out still burning, what is your excuse? I mean that with love. I mean that with every ounce of compassion I have, but I also mean it with complete honesty, because you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort right now. What is your excuse? What story are you telling yourself about why you haven't started? What narrative have you constructed to make your inaction feel justified? Is it money? Is it time? Is it your family? Is it your past? Is it the neighborhood you grew up in? Is it the color of your skin? Is it the cards you were dealt? Because I will not minimize any of those things. Real obstacles are real. Systemic barriers are real. Trauma is real. Hardship is real. But I will tell you something that will either inspire you or infuriate you. And either reaction is fine with me. Every single one of those obstacles has been overcome by someone who had it worse than you. Every single one. There is a person who came from deeper poverty who built more wealth. There is a person who experienced deeper trauma who found deeper healing. There is a person who faced higher walls who climbed higher. Not because they were superhuman, but because they decided that their story would not end with the obstacle. They decided that the obstacle was not the period at the end of the sentence. It was just a comma, just a pause before the next chapter. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because his editor told him he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Walt Disney, the man who built a theme park empire on the power of imagination, he was fired for lacking it. J.K. Rowling was a broke single mother on welfare when she was writing Harry Potter. She was rejected by 12 publishers. 12. Before one finally said yes, and that one yes went on to become one of the best-selling book series in the history of human civilization. Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television. Oprah Winfrey, unfit for television. The woman who would go on to own her own television network. These are not just motivational anecdotes. These are lessons. These are pieces of evidence that the universe often tests the chosen ones before it promotes them. Rejection is not a sign that you're wrong. Rejection is often confirmation that you're early, that you're different, that what you carry doesn't fit the existing mold, which means you might be called to build a new one. But, and this is the critical part, none of these people succeeded because they were chosen and then sat back and waited. They succeeded because being chosen gave them a foundation, and they built on that foundation with obsession, with consistency, with the willingness to keep going when every rational voice in the world told them to quit. J.K. Rowling didn't stop writing after the 3rd rejection. She didn't stop after the 7th. She kept writing. She kept submitting. She kept believing in the story she was called to tell, and that persistence, that sacred stubbornness, that refusal to let time steal what she knew she was meant to create, that is what changed the world. I want to talk about urgency a little more because I don't think we understand it deeply enough. Urgency doesn't mean panic. Urgency doesn't mean anxiety. Urgency doesn't mean working yourself to exhaustion and burning out by 32. True urgency is something much more powerful than any of those things. True urgency is clarity. It's knowing what you're building and why it matters, and refusing to let anything that doesn't serve that vision steal your hours. It's the ability to look at a distraction, whether it's an unnecessary argument, a meaningless scroll through social media, another hour of Netflix, another evening of doing nothing, and say, no, not today. My calling costs too much for me to spend my currency on that, because time is currency. Every hour you spend is an investment, and you are either investing in your future or you are investing in your stagnation. There is no middle ground. There is no neutral. Standing still is moving backward, because the world is moving forward, and if you're not growing, you are, by definition, falling behind. The average American spends over 4 hours a day on their phone. 4 hours. That's 28 hours a week. That's over 100 hours a month. That's 1,200 hours a year. 1,200 hours. Do you understand what you could build in 1,200 hours? You could learn a new language. You could write 3 books. You could start a business. You could get a degree. You could transform your body. You could change your community. You could change your life. But instead, those 1,200 hours go to content, to other people's lives, to watching other people build their dreams while yours sits unopened. And I want to be clear, I'm not anti-technology. I'm not anti-entertainment. Rest is important. Joy is important. But 4 hours a day, when you have a calling, when the world needs what you carry, that is not rest. That is not joy. That is avoidance wrapped in a glowing screen. Jim Rohn, one of the greatest business philosophers of the last century, said this. He said, "We must all suffer one of 2 things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret." Read that again slowly. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And here's what Rohn understood that most people miss. Both are painful. Nobody is saying the path of discipline is easy. It's hard to wake up early. It's hard to stay focused. It's hard to say no to things that feel good in the moment. It's hard to keep going when you can't see the results yet. Discipline is genuinely painful. But regret is a different kind of pain. Because the pain of discipline fades. You finish the workout and the soreness goes away. You push through the hard season and the other side is sweeter for it. Regret doesn't fade. Regret compounds. Regret grows. And the older you get, the heavier regret becomes, until there are people walking around carrying decades of unmade decisions, unlived dreams, and unspoken truths, and that weight is crushing them slowly from the inside. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Choose your pain wisely. I think about Bronnie Ware. She's a nurse who spent years working with patients who were in the last weeks of their lives. And she compiled the most common regrets of the dying. And I want you to listen to these, because one day, each and every one of us will be lying somewhere at the end of our lives. And these regrets will either belong to us or they won't. The number 1 regret. And this one hits me every time. The number 1 regret was this. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 1. Not, I wish I'd worked harder for someone else. Not, I wish I'd been safer. Not, I wish I'd stayed in my lane. The number 1 regret of dying people was that they lived for other people's expectations instead of their own truth. They buried their talent in the ground of approval seeking. They silenced their calling because someone else's voice was louder. And at the end, in the quiet of that hospital bed, the noise of other people's opinions faded away, and all that was left was the echo of what could have been. Don't let that be you. I am begging you, not as a speaker, not as a professional, but as a human being who has stood at the edge of my own regret and felt what it feels like to almost lose years to fear. I am begging you, don't let that be you. You have been chosen. You have been given gifts that are specific to you, shaped for you, meant to flow through you and into a world that is waiting. And you are running out of time. not because something terrible is about to happen, but because time moves whether or not you move with it. And every day you delay is a day the world waits. And the world can only wait so long. There's a concept in physics called entropy. It's the natural tendency of systems to move toward disorder, toward decay, toward dissolution. And your life, like every system in the universe, is subject to entropy. Relationships that aren't nurtured deteriorate. Skills that aren't practiced erode. Goals that aren't pursued fade. Dreams that aren't fed die. The universe does not preserve what you fail to tend. And so urgency is not just ambition, urgency is maintenance. Urgency is the active, daily resistance against the entropy that wants to pull you into mediocrity, into comfort, into the slow forgetting of who you were born to be. I want to talk about legacy for a minute, because I think legacy is one of the most misunderstood concepts in our culture. People think legacy is something you build after you've made it. They think legacy is what you leave behind when you die. And while that's partially true, while legacy certainly has an afterlife dimension, the truth is that you are building your legacy right now, in this moment. With this decision, with how you use the next hour after you walk out of this room today. Legacy is not a trophy you win at the end. Legacy is the accumulation of every choice you make along the way. It's the person you become through discipline and trial and growth. It's the influence you carry without even knowing it. The way your children watch how you handle adversity, the way your colleagues are shaped by your work ethic, the way strangers are moved by your story. You are a legacy in motion, and the question is whether the motion is forward or backward, intentional or accidental, purposeful or random. Muhammad Ali, and you knew we were going to get here eventually. Muhammad Ali once said, "Don't count the days, make the days count." 3 seconds, 8 words. One of the most important instructions ever given to a human being about how to live. Make the days count. Not just fill them, not just survive them, not just get through them. Make them count. Make something happen in them. Learn something in them. Build something in them. Give something in them. Move forward in them. Make them count. Ali himself was a master of urgency. When he was training for the rumble in the jungle against George Foreman, who was considered by virtually everyone in the boxing world to be unbeatable. Ali trained like a man who understood that his window was closing. He was 32 years old. He had already been stripped of his title for refusing to serve in Vietnam. He had lost 3.5 years of his prime, fighting years to that conviction, and when he stepped into that ring in Kinshasa, Zaire, most people thought he was going to get badly hurt, possibly killed. But Ali had a plan. He had used every day leading up to that fight to prepare not just physically but mentally. And in the 8th round, after absorbing Foreman's punches against the ropes in what became known as the roper dope strategy, Ali exploded off the ropes and knocked Foreman down. He knocked the unbeatable man down, and he reclaimed his heavyweight championship of the world. At 32 years old, after being out of the sport for years, because he made every single day of preparation count. He didn't waste time feeling sorry for the years he'd lost. He didn't waste energy mourning what had been taken from him. He took what was left, and he made it count. What if you took what you have left, whatever remains of your youth, your health, your opportunity, your network, your time, and you made it count? What if starting tomorrow morning, you treated every single day like it was your Ali training camp for the fight of your life? What would change? What would you build? Who would you become? I want to address something that I know is sitting in the back of some of your minds right now. Some of you are thinking, but I've already wasted so much time. It's too late for me. I'm too old, too far behind, too damaged, too broken. And I want you to hear me very clearly on this, because this might be the most important thing I say today. It is never, it is categorically, unconditionally, universally never too late for a chosen one to begin. Never, Grandma Moses began her painting career at 78 years old. 78. She went on to become one of the most celebrated American folk artists in history. Vera Wang didn't design her first dress until she was 40 years old. Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 49. Colonel Sanders was 62 years old when he started franchising Kentucky Fried Chicken after failing at dozens of other ventures. 62. These are not exceptions to the rule. These are proof that the rule itself is a lie. The rule that says there's an expiration date on your dreams, that rule is a lie. A convenient, comfortable, cowardly lie that keeps people from doing the hard, beautiful, terrifying work of becoming who they were made to be. And for those of you who are young, 20, 25, 30, I need you to hear this too, because youth is often the greatest enemy of urgency. When you're young, you feel like you have all the time in the world. You feel like the future is this vast, infinite landscape that will always accommodate your ambitions. But let me tell you what happens. The years start to move faster, not because physics changes, but because life fills up. Responsibilities accumulate, obligations multiply. The window of radical possibility that you have right now, the window where you can risk everything, try anything, reinvent yourself completely. That window gets smaller with every year, not closed, not locked, but smaller. And so if you are young and you are sitting on your gifts, you are committing a crime against your future self. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Your future self is either going to thank you or resent you for what you do with your time right now. Which will it be? I think about the concept of compound interest. And I know that sounds like a financial term, but stay with me because it applies to everything. Compound interest is the principle that small, consistent investments grow exponentially over time. Einstein allegedly called it the eighth wonder of the world, and it applies to habits, to skills, to character, to relationships, to faith. When you consistently invest in becoming better, when you read a little every day, when you work on your craft every day, when you take care of your health every day, when you pursue your purpose every day, those small daily deposits compound into something extraordinary. But here's the dark side of compound interest. It works in reverse too, when you consistently invest in your own deterioration. When you procrastinate a little every day, when you choose distraction over discipline every day, when you avoid the hard conversations and the hard work every day, those small daily withdrawals compound into a life that is far smaller, far emptier, and far more painful than the one you were designed to live. Every day is either a deposit or a withdrawal. There is no neutral transaction, and chosen ones understand this. That's why they guard their time. That's why they're protective of their mornings. That's why they're intentional about who they spend time with, what they consume, what they say yes to, and what they say no to. Not out of selfishness, but out of stewardship. Because they understand that the life they are building is not just for them. It's for everyone their life is meant to touch. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a version of you. 10 years from now, this version of you made the decision today, right here, in this room, in this moment. They decided that the speech they heard today was the turning point. They went home and they started. They weren't perfect. They fell down 100 times. They failed publicly, embarrassingly, repeatedly. But they kept going. They stayed consistent. They invested every day. They protected their time. They pursued their calling with the urgency of someone who understood that the clock was ticking. 10 years later, that version of you is living a life that is almost unrecognizable compared to today. The impact they're having, the freedom they're walking in, the peace they feel when they lay down at night knowing they gave it everything. That version of you exists. It is possible. It is waiting for you on the other side of today's decision. Now imagine the other version. This version also heard the speech. They felt the fire in the room. They got emotional. maybe even cried a little. But then they went home, and the couch was comfortable, and the phone was right there, and tomorrow seemed like a better day to start. And that became next week, and next week became next month, and next month became next year, and 10 years later, that version of you is still where they are today, a little older, a little more tired, carrying a little more regret, wondering what might have been. These two versions of you are real. They're both possible. And the only thing, the single, solitary thing, that determines which one you become is the decision you make today, not next week, not after the new year, not when the timing is right. Today, Les Brown. And if you don't know Les Brown, I need you to look him up the moment this is over. Les Brown was told as a child that he was jukably mentally retarded. He was labeled. He was categorized. He was written off before he even began. And he grew up carrying that label, carrying that shame, carrying the weight of other people's limited vision of who he could become. But there was a teacher who saw something in him, a teacher who refused to accept the label, who told him someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. And Les Brown held on to those words. He planted them deep, and he watered them every single day. He became one of the most celebrated motivational speakers in the world. He's spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. He's been on major television networks, on stages all over the world. He's been through cancer, through public humiliation, through failure. And he is still standing, still burning, still speaking, because he decided long ago that the label was not the limit. What labels are you carrying? What has someone told you that you've made into a ceiling? What story about yourself have you been repeating so long that you've started to believe it's the truth? Because labels are not limits unless you allow them to be. Other people's perceptions of you are not your identity unless you accept them as such. The chosen ones learn to hear the noise of other people's opinions and keep moving. Not because they don't feel it, not because the words don't sting, but because they've decided that their destiny is louder than other people's doubts. We are in a moment in history, right now, today, that is unprecedented in human possibility. The tools available to you, the platforms available to you, the global reach available to you, the access to knowledge and resources and networks available to you. It has never been greater in the history of civilization. A kid with a phone and a Wi-Fi connection can reach 1 billion people. A person with a real idea and the willingness to work can build a company that changes industries. The barriers to entry in almost every field are lower than they have ever been. And yet, despite all of this unprecedented access and opportunity, we have an epidemic of wasted potential, an epidemic of unfulfilled callings, an epidemic of chosen ones who never showed up for what they were chosen to do. And the irony is devastating. Because for the first time in history, the tools are available for anyone with purpose and persistence to build something meaningful. And we're using those same tools to distract ourselves from the very purpose we were made to fulfill. This is the paradox of our generation. The same phone that could be your platform is the instrument of your procrastination. The same internet that could connect you to everything you need to build your dream is the rabbit hole that's stealing your hours. This is why discipline has never been more important. This is why focus has never been more valuable. This is why chosen ones, people who have clarity about why they're here and what they're meant to do, have never been more powerful or more needed. Because the world doesn't need more content. The world doesn't need more noise. The world needs more people who have done the deep work of discovering who they are and what they carry, and who are willing to show up for that fully, consistently, unapologetically. The world needs you. Not a diminished, distracted, half-committed version of you. Not the version of you that gave everything to comfort and kept the leftover crumbs for your calling. The world needs the full, unbridled, burning, urgent version of you. The version that woke up. I want to close with this. There's an old African proverb, and I love this because it holds so much truth in so few words. The proverb says, "When the music changes, so does the dance." The music is changing. The world is shifting. Old industries are collapsing. New ones are rising. The ground beneath us is moving. And if you're doing the same dance you were doing 5 years ago, if you're moving to the same rhythm of complacency and delay and "I'll get to it eventually," you are dancing to music that no longer exists. The chosen ones hear the new music. They feel the shift. They adjust. They learn new steps. They stay agile, stay hungry, stay aware. They don't cling to the way things were. They lean into the way things are becoming. Because destiny doesn't live in the past. It lives in the next bold move. You are chosen. I believe that with everything I have. I believe that every person in this room was placed here, on this planet, at this time, in this era, with a specific assignment. And I believe that assignment is both urgent and possible. I believe you have what it takes. I believe that the very fact that you felt something when you heard that word, chosen, is evidence that something in you knows it to be true. But knowing is not enough. Feeling is not enough. Even believing is not enough on its own. You have to act. You have to move. You have to start today, not tomorrow, not Monday, not January 1st, today. When you walk out of this room, the clock doesn't pause for you. The years don't wait for you to be ready. Your calling doesn't go back to sleep and wait patiently for you to feel like answering it. The time is now. The moment is now. The decision is now. So here is what I'm asking you to do. Just one thing, not 100 changes, not an overhaul. One thing. Identify the one action, the one brave, uncomfortable, overdue action that you have been avoiding. The one phone call, the one business plan, the one application, the one conversation, the one step toward the dream you've been keeping in the theoretical safe, never going to happen if I don't start space in your head. Identify it and go do it today. Not perfectly, not with all the resources you think you need, not when conditions are ideal. Today, with what you have from where you are, because done imperfectly is infinitely more powerful than perfect and never started. The world is waiting, chosen one. Your purpose is waiting. The people your life is meant to change are waiting, and time, precious, irreplaceable, sacred time, is moving with or without you. Don't miss it. Don't you dare miss it. Now get to work.